So let's talk about DeSantis and Kamala Harris, because he is working with the Biden administration based off of what I've been researching, but he's saying that he's not taking her calls because she's trying to play party politics at a time that they're trying to preserve as many lives as they can and warn people and get people out of Florida. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. DeSantis pulled up on Fox News, and he wanted to communicate his thoughts.
Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, hearing all that and probably knew it already, joins us live from the Emergency Management Headquarters in Tallahassee. Governor, you've been there quite often. What's the greatest challenge with Milton as opposed to Helene or others you've had to deal with over the last 7 years?
Well, I think as Janice mentioned, this is tracking very close to that Tampa Bay area. I would note that anyone on the western peninsula of Florida, just wherever that eye wall is scheduled to go across now on these cones, that can shift. I think right now they have it just south of Tampa Bay in Manatee County. It could shift further north, and it could shift further south in terms of having the most immediate impacts. But that Tampa Bay area is very low-lying. Pinellas County, where I grew up, is surrounded by water. It's a peninsula. It is just vulnerable to storm surge generally. This is a storm that's going to be hitting sometime Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. The water is already going to be high with the tide. So that's a huge, huge concern. Now, it had gotten up to 180 mile an hour when it was going towards the Yucatan Peninsula and the Gulf of Mexico. That is an incredibly powerful storm. It has weakened since then. It may strengthen today. The forecasts are that it will make landfall weaker than it is today. Let's pray that that's the case. The surge is going to be a big enough problem, and hopefully the winds are manageable. Most of the buildings in Florida are going to be able to handle a Category 3 storm. So there's a lot going on. And oh, by the way, we just had a Category 4 storm impact a lot of people up the west coast of Florida. One of the issues that we saw in places like the Pinellas County beaches and Manatee County beaches was there was a lot of debris. And these local governments have to pick it up. They have contractors that do it, but it wasn't being done fast enough. So I did this weekend. I took all of our state agencies, any truck we had anywhere in the state who's involved in normal missions, we diverted it over to those barrier islands. We're doing a 24/7 debris mission. So we've been able in 48 hours with our state assets be able to do as much debris removal as any of the contractors who've been doing this for almost 2 weeks. Wow. We actually had to pry open one of the landfills in Pinellas County because it wasn't operating 24/7 as my executive order did, but we've made a big dent in that. And the issue is if you have this debris laying out, it can become projectiles, and then with the storm surge, it creates more damage. So it's very difficult. We're going to get hit basically 2 weeks on the dot from getting hit by Helene, but we felt it was important that we did that. We also have now close to 40,000 utility linemen in the state of Florida are en route. And remember, there's a lot of these workers that are still in Georgia and North Carolina and those places. We've had to bring them in all the way from California. So they're going to be ready to do the power restoration mission. And then we'll have 8,000 Florida National Guard when the storm hits. All our urban search and rescue, our Florida State Guard, Fish and Wildlife, all that will be there, ready to go. So we're prepared for this. This is not easy. I think it's been very taxing on our citizens to have to go through this. Just as you're starting to pick up the pieces from Helene, now you see another monster storm bearing down. But we'll get through this. I think the important thing today is you still have time to execute your plan. You do not have to get on the interstate and drive hundreds of miles. There are shelters open all throughout the state of Florida. In your county, there's shelters that are in higher ground and that are hurricane-proof. So if you don't want to get on the interstate, you don't have to. And there's a wide variety of options. So if you are in one of those surge-prone areas, take action now. We have all day today. As we get into tomorrow, you're going to start seeing effects most likely in Wednesday afternoon.
So for everybody that was in the chat saying that a lot of people don't have no resources to be able to leave, I don't believe you, because they're not telling you that you got to come all the way up here to Michigan. They're not telling you that you got to go over there and fly to New York. They're not telling you that you got to ride all the way over to California or you got to just leave the state completely. They're saying that you need to make sure that you save yourself. You can't do nothing else for your house It's time to get out of Dodge. You ain't got to jump on the interstate. You can go over to the hurricane-proof evacuation shelters, whatever it is, 24, 48 hours, be uncomfortable, go to these places and save your life and save your family's life. This ain't the time to be a tough guy. And like he said, they can always figure out and rebuild or get the linemen in there and get the electricity on and make sure that they figure out what's going to go on and go forth. But you can't get your life back. And so I believe that he probably has one of the hardest jobs as a governor, maybe him in the governor wheelchair down there in Texas. But I believe that Florida's Ron DeSantis probably has one of the hardest jobs in the United States of America, dealing with this and always having hurricane season and trying to convince people to do the thing that's in their own best interest. Let's continue to hear what he has to say.
In fact, Governor, I was down in Florida yesterday, and I know that a lot of the stores are running out of water. The gas stations are running low on gas. A lot of people who were impacted by Helene actually lost their cars, and so there are lines out the door at car rental places for people trying to get out. And as well, you've got your emergency services people, and the cops are going door to door in these A-zone evacuation areas, saying you've got to get out. Because once this storm hits, you guys are not going to be able to go and save them. They've got to save themselves by getting out now, right?
Yeah, and so on the transportation, because you raise a good point, the counties are providing transportation for folks that don't have it, and then the state has entered into an agreement with Uber.
So all of y'all still sitting here in the chat making excuses. Well, if you the elderly, well, if you this person, well, if you that person, you won't be able to get. No, listen. Get out of Dodge. Get out of Dodge. Get out the way. Move. Get out the way. You have no excuses to not. The state is literally paying for you to get out the way proactively. No excuses. Get out of there.
So if you need a ride to a shelter, you can go on Uber. There's a code for Milton Relief. And so take advantage of that. Absolutely. You should do that. But yes, you run from the water and you hide from the wind. If we end up with a Category 3 storm, most of the places in Florida, particularly with our building codes, if you hunker down, in and of itself, you'll probably be okay. But the water, you just can't contend with Mother Nature. If you have 10 feet of that surging in, it is incredibly destructive. It is not something that you want to mess with. So there are options for you. You have time to be able to do it. And make sure that you are safe in your family. And oh, by the way, the pets too. All counties and shelters, they have at least one pet-friendly shelter. We've actually evacuated some of the pet shelters where you've had abandoned pets. We've moved them to safer shelters in other parts of the state. So there's contingencies for all this stuff. We're going to have damage. People are going to lose homes. We're going to have businesses. We're going to have destruction of infrastructure. But we can fix all that. You can't fix if you decide to stay in 10 feet of storm surge and you die.
You've mastered the process there. Everybody gives you credit for it because, you guys do such a great job with handling this. But we're learning that FEMA now is reporting that there's a severe shortage of disaster workers. This is also coming with, they're saying they're going to need more money. They may run out of money in November. So what are your thoughts on that? And are you guys set in Florida to be able to cover your people, even if FEMA won't have the money?
Well, we have what we need right now. And so FEMA, we work with them. Some of the urban search and rescue, a lot of those people are in Florida anyways, but we're also bringing them in from around the country. We're also working with DOD to supplement the fuel mission. So we have all our requests have been honored pre-storm, and we anticipate after the storm. I don't know what Congress is going to have to do going forward, but I will want, because Steve also raised a good point about the fuel. So the fuel situation is in Florida.
Let me first, before we continue, because I don't like the way that Biden handled the North Carolina situation. I don't like how they handled Helene. But I will give credit where credit is due objectively. I'm still not voting for Democrats, but I still have to give Biden credit on this. The fact that he not playing party politics, and maybe it's because he's an outgoing president or something like that, and he's more focused on people a little bit more, even though he's still advocating for the Democratic side. He has to. Let me give Biden credit, and that DeSantis literally just said that the federal government and Biden honored all of their requests as far as what they need prior to, and they're going to have to figure it out as far as who got the money, if FEMA is going to be broken, all of that afterwards. But the federal government is honoring DeSantis and working with him in order to ensure that they get every resource that they need or every resource that they're requesting to make sure that they can proactively prepare for and ride out this storm. So let me give Biden a rare round of applause. Let me give Biden a rare round of applause, because if DeSantis is saying that he is working with them and he is honoring all of their requests in order to ensure that the preservation of human life is happening, then that's the number one thing. We can criticize afterwards, we can evaluate afterwards, but I got to give Biden his credit with working with DeSantis to ensure that everything is what it needs to be as of right now. Let's continue.
It's not a supply issue, it's a distribution issue, because the stations are running through it faster than they normally do.
I don't have to,
Florida
Eric
Highway
D.
Patrol escorting these fuel trucks into the gas stations. We have 1.5 million gallons that are either in Florida or en route, in reserve. Our port of Tampa is still open. It's still going to be receiving fuel. So I think it's more of just when they run out, you got to replenish it. But we have stocked spare fuel in the state of Florida, and we'll continue to do that leading up to the storm. And we anticipate you could have some major interruptions at the port of Tampa, which is one of the places where
I wonder
we
how
get
bad it
a
is
lot
in
of our
Mexico
fuel
right
from. And so we will work around that as needed.
Governor, I know Kamala Harris called you selfish. She said she's tried to contact you to talk to you about hurricane relief. And I know that you've said, I think you said she didn't try to contact you. We want to get your response.
Did she say that Kamala Harris called him selfish? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Now, I haven't reviewed this. I'm literally looking at it at the same time that you guys are. And that's why when he said it, I gave Biden credit. But why would she be sitting here calling names prior to, come on, man. Come on, bro. Did she say that she said that she called her selfish? She called DeSantis selfish?
But first, listen to what she said. Well, we don't have the sound, but she said, you know, moment of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone calls himself a leader, says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now and playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations. These are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it's selfish, and it's about political gamemanship. What's your response?
What? He's literally just giving the Biden administration credit, and he's leveraging every resource in the state to ensure that the people are safe, and they're proactively trying to do what they got to do to make sure that everybody survives. What is she doing? What is she doing? I got to give Biden credit for focusing on what's best for the people in this situation. What is she doing? What is she doing?
Well, I think she should look in the mirror. We've been on an emergency footing for 2 weeks straight, round the clock, 24/7. We've been working, my office, our Division of Emergency Management, helping people prepare for Hurricane Helene, helping effectuate rescues of people after Hurricane Helene, helping people pick up the pieces of their lives after Helene, and then have to also turn around and prepare for major impacts and maybe even more impacts from Hurricane Milton, be able to have rescue personnel ready to help people, and then, of course, help with the power restoration, all these things to do. So that's been my sole focus. My focus has not been on dealing with Kamala Harris. I saw the news report. I didn't know she tried to contact me. But I'd also say it's not about you, Kamala.
Right.
It's about the people of Florida. My focus is exactly where it should be. And I can tell you this. I've worked on these hurricanes under both President Trump and President Biden. Neither of them ever tried to politicize it. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign. I have zero time to entertain these political games. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to prepare and respond to what may be one of the most damaging storms in the history of the United States. So she says focusing on protecting your people is selfish. I think she ought to look in the mirror.
And right now, Governor, just to conclude, you have what you need from the federal government, as well as you feel like you have the resources in place. Is that correct?
Every request we've made, and I've been in contact with the president. I've been in contact with the FEMA director. You know, it's interesting. Harris is not even in the chain of command.
Yeah, what is she even
doing? She has
doing?
no role in this. I mean, the idea that I should be like worrying about her when I'm focused on the task at hand is just, quite frankly, absurd. So yes, all of our requests have been answered. We have marshaled all state resources that are available to us. It's going to be a very robust response, but it's going to be a lot of damage, and we're bracing for that. I'd ask everyone to keep us in your prayers. We know we're going to get hit, but hopefully we can pray that this storm will weaken and do the least amount of damage possible.
All right.
He like, I don't even know what you're doing. Why are you injecting yourself into this situation in the first place? I was able to find, somebody said, where's the audio if it's not real? This is her saying it. I was able to really quickly pull that up.
I cannot stress enough to all the folks in Florida, in the Tampa area, please listen to evacuation orders. Please listen to your local officials, because I know a lot of folks out there have survived these hurricanes before. This one is going to be very, very serious. And I urge you to please just grab whatever you need. Listen to the orders you're getting from your local officials. They know what they're telling you, and they know what Milton.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. Let me go ahead and get to the part. Let me see if we get to the part where she called him selfish.
Is about to be. So please do that. The other point I'd make is that there's a lot of mis and disinformation being pushed out there by the former president about what is available, in particular to the survivors of Helene. And first of all, it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's about him. It's not about you. And the reality is that FEMA has so many resources that are available to folks who desperately need them now, and resources that are about helping people get back on their feet and rebuild and have places to go. You are entitled to these resources. People are entitled to these resources, and it is critically important that people apply for the help that is there to support. That all of those resources were created for just these kinds of moments in an emergency situation, knowing that folks are entitled to have the relief that they so rightly need at this moment in time. So listen to your sheriffs around the places that have been impacted by Helene. Listen to your local sheriff, who's going to tell you straight about what's available to you and how, for so many reasons and ways, there are no conditions attached to the relief that's available to you.
Madam Vice President, Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
I'm going to leave that to y'all. I'm going to let y'all determine whether or not Governor DeSantis is doing a great job in Florida. He did acknowledge that he's in contact with the Biden administration, that he's literally following the chain of command, and that he don't have time for politics right now and to be going back and forth, and he's more focused on making sure that he take care of the people in Florida. So in my personal opinion, let me give a round of applause to Governor DeSantis. And I also want to give a round of applause to President Biden. In this situation in particular. Okay, so I'm going to keep focused. I'm going to make sure I stay on top of it. Again, make sure that you guys evacuate and you do the thing that's in the best interest of your family. And don't get caught up in politics when it comes to saving lives. We can debate about politics afterwards. All right?